Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We're live again at BeyondX on the second day. It looks like there are many people that slowly re-participating. Personally, I'm hoping that we breach 200 participants for this session. I've got a Teh Tarik bet ongoing right now. I hope everyone's doing all right, either working from home or barely from the office. We are now moving into the second session for the second day. My name is Suhirman bin Sadilan. I am an associate director of architecture from ONG&ONG KL, Malaysia, branch office in KL, doing work across different disciplines and different sectors, residential, commercial, as well as mixed developments in Malaysia. And my co-moderator, Daniels.
Yes, hi everyone. I'm Daniels here, Digital Technology Director at ONG&ONG here in Singapore. Okay, so just to kickstart, it's a bit housekeeping about Zoom thingy. So we have the chat box and we have the Q&A box. So ask your questions in the Q&A, of course, and maybe you can also share your opinion in the chat later. We will try to answer as many as Q&A as possible later. By the way, we also have poll questions, which I'm going to launch this thing soon after this. Maybe I'll launch it after in a few seconds. Right, so please feel free to give your opinion in the polling, and then we will discuss the matter later during the our panel discussion.
So those of us that have just joined, BeyondX is our annual design festival where we showcase fresh technologies and the people behind it. Basically to innovate our current work experiences and our work environment in the AEC field and industry. This year, we've got 10 speakers covering 8 topics from diverse backgrounds, sharing their knowledge for us to explore those technologies, as well as seeing how smart tech and digitalization can inform and influence and quite possibly shift and change the future of the AEC industry. Daniels?
Yeah, so we have in total for the past 2 days, today is the second day, we have total about 8 sessions. Now is the 6th sessions on the second day, right? So yeah, I mean, we still have a few other sessions later in the afternoon, 2 more, I think, right, in the afternoon. Okay, so yes. We welcome our speaker, Andrew Jiang from Hiverlab. Okay, so Andrew Jiang, he's a founder of Hiverlab and has always been fascinated with creating unique storytelling experience via cutting-edge technologies. Since 2014, he has been building Hiverlab, a media technology company that drives digital transformation in Asia, with focus on emerging and immersive technologies such as AR, VR, MR, cloud computing, data analytics, and more. Right. So today, Hiverlab has helped more than 150 organizations around the world to build their digital infrastructure.
Just a quick note, guys. Your questions will be addressed at the end of the session, so don't worry, plenty of time to pick the speaker's mind and brain in moving forward. Now, let's please welcome Ender.
Hi, Daniel. Hi, Shuhaman. Thanks for the great introduction. Can you hear me well?
Yes, thanks.
Yes, all good.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Good morning. Thank you for this opportunity to allow us to share some of our experiences and technical related movement that we are actually pushing. I think as an immersive tech company, we have been in this domain for about 7 years. We have been witness a change of how this whole industry has been providing a lot more accessible technology to the public users. I think in the early stage, when we start to do a lot of solution-based experiences, we realize that there's a lot of potential learning curves to the end user. So eventually, we end up doing a lot of solutions as one-time off experiences. But nowadays, when you look at the new trends that's happening, like other speakers have been sharing in 2 days, there's a lot of very user-friendly softwares that can allow them to create content, allow them to actually use this technology by themselves. I think one of the things that we are also driving is actually to drive accessible technology to the end user by providing tools, providing low coding experiences for them. I think mixed reality is definitely one of the topics that we've been always pursuing. As recently, we also have established partnerships with Microsoft, so become their authorized device reseller to actually further push mixed reality adoptions. But in short speaking, that we feel there will be a lot more kind of like interactions, dynamic experiences we can bring into different type of touch point that we currently have in our daily lives and works. For example, we talk about the new working. So what does new working really means to us? Today we are doing these sharing presentations. I believe that everyone nowadays, we actually been doing a lot of presentations through Zoom meetings, different kind of webinars. But most of times, we are also always doing this very traditional mode, means slide sharing, webcam talking. I think there's very unlikely can immediately get out of this kind of format. But I think to us, it's probably a little bit challenging if you look at the business communications. And now imagine that all these digital technologies eventually bring you back in front of the table, in front of windows. You kind of lose a little bit flexibility as a presenter to actually have a full body language to be communicated over the conversation, which actually is very classic type of human interaction. I think for us, what we can do. So we also know that there's trends of using devices like HoloLens, device like a wearable device, then can allow users to see each other, to actually communicate with each other. But there's always, like have learning curves on the cost of hardware and on the production related comprehensive level of knowledge that we transfer to the end user. As for us, we actually are pushing and developing some technologies of which we want to show you today. How do we foresee that using some simple technologies to create different type of experiences in the work environment. So allow me to do a quick screen sharing. Of course, this screen sharing is slightly different from a PowerPoint. This is something sharing from our application. So now, just give me a second. Okay. So as you can see, what we are going to do is we are going to use application. So this application is basically just a mobile application, which allow you to create a live AR presentation experiences. So that experiences will able to allow you to transfer the space, the traditional space, into something more, a lot more, interactive, by using mixed reality kind of technology. So let me just start to share screen. As well, you can see that we are doing this as a live demo. So there might be some faders time to time, but don't worry, it's just a process of getting all this set up. Okay, so I believe that now you guys can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Okay, so as you can see, that I came as just sitting in the small car. Actually, if you look around this office, this is actually how do we feel that the office might be used in the future? We set up this new office recently because we feel that in the future they might no longer have a lot of permanent tables. So it's everything is just about built for the conversation purpose. But I think for us, we feel that even look at having a presentation as part of the work experiences. I want to always make it a little bit more engaging, a bit more like interesting. So I think for us, we look at all this movement of change of communications. We always think about how this technology being so intuitive, so accessible to us, compared with what we had in the past, right? So we should look at the phones. The phone booth is actually a very basic infrastructure to allow you to do the communication over the audio, but you have to stick at certain point. So imagine that in the early stage, usually our office still using just a phone line. So you have a phone line in the office. You really have to sit there as a receptionist to actually pick up phone call every day. But nowadays, I think we probably no longer need it. Everything has been to mobile. So also same thing for the video communications in the beginning. It's very linear. It's very one-side. So you have to be using a TV. You have to stay at home to watch TV because there's only a cable broadband kind of connections to your home TV. I think nowadays everything go to internet, everything go to the web. Even the TV becomes smart TV, so we don't have to really watch TV at home. We can actually watch all these video streamings everywhere online. So, but what else can we do? So I think for us, you look at how does this consumer level technologies brings new impact into the working environment. Then we look at in the working environment, what has been changed. And so nowadays, I think we no longer see such machine called typewriter, right? So typewriter is something that has been invented in the early stage. If you look at how do they do the keyboard, it's basically following the the frequency of the words being used in the typing habit. And then I think after a while, if you go closer, you can definitely see the typewriter is very high classic design, but it might no longer be a case that we need it because now we have a different type of digital solutions. And even about how do we deliver the message, right? In the classic office, we have things like a printer, right? So basically, a printer will help you to deliver the message in the physical copies and send over. And so nowadays, I think the printer might also not be essential, especially for example, in this office, there's no printer. Basically, everything has been fully digitized. You just send email, you just like to communicate over different kind of new tools like Slack, WhatsApp. I think those are the kind of transformations. So there might be something different, something a new meaning for the way how you work, and why do you even need a working environment as an office setup? So I think one of the ideas we are thinking about is what kind of a new collaboration model we have nowadays is based on the accessibility of technology happening from the cloud. So for example, you can easily imagine that nowadays the design work, the programming works has been highly decentralized. So you have a team in different countries, they'll be communicating over internet, actually helping something up all these online working groups. So to do all those cloud-based, basically the content sharings and co-editing. Even now, if you look at programming and the design, 3D designs, like all these design softwares, they allow you to do co-editing in real time as well. Then meanwhile, another type of trend is people who actually have a very limited knowledge of creating creative content. For example, like infographics, animations, or some like different kind of video content. And this kind of trend is also going to be very, very accessible. Like there's software called Canvas and software called different cloud-based like vectors. Those softwares will allow you to just easily build content. Of course, there's a lot more libraries, free libraries online. So like Sketchfab just get acquired by Epic, becoming the largest 3D libraries. So I think all these libraries allow people to create a new content for the future world. So I think there will be questions about how can I create content which is relevant to them. Actually, if you look at how those online library has been growing, they always try to give you some good template which allow you to actually fit in the topic for the conversation. I think that's why I think for us it's maybe one of the ways the future of work, including how do you actually communicate with each other in the business domain. We no longer need a traditional kind of slide presentations, a 2D kind of videos. You might just go straight to something more intuitive, more 3D, more interactive, especially for the design industries. You look at the design space, you might think about design different objects. For example, you can look at the machine design, right? So you actually have like manufacturing plants or logistics firms. You actually want to set up something and you want to demo this to the user. And instead of bringing them to the factory, bring them to your warehouse, you might actually just immediately launch something in front of them so they can observe, they can look around. Basically, having this technology, you just simply walk around the whole space. You can walk around for me. Yeah, I think my colleagues actually just coming to hold the camera, but you can just walk around and look at the different angle. So it's much easier for us to actually understand how the machine works. So which is actually go way beyond a traditional 2D presentation limitation. And of course, there'll be something else we can do. Yeah. So for example, you can look at a lot more than what we really call a change of printer, right? Now this is a new machine. This is a 3D printer. So what we are seeing at the corner of the 3D printer actually the ink is basically the PLC kind of materials. So basically you're able to use a 3D printer to print out the design materials from whatever have a design from the cloud. I think these are the process happens. And lastly, you can look at those blending of real and virtual. Imagine that you are using technology to design your robot. Yeah, so your robot can be a physical robot which has a lot of programming components that you might not be able to see through it easily from just observing. But by bringing mixed reality or new technologies like interactive media, you're able to see maybe the breakdown of the robot. You can see all these components, which you can imagine that you can build that digital assets as a digital twin of your actual assets, which also help you to communicate and help to learn how to do more developing debugging using the simulation method. I think these are the technologies being quite a lot flexible, but the simple thing is you always start by visualizing something in the space. And the space, it will give you a good sense of size, a sense of observing the tangible experiences when you don't have much access to the object as well. I think lastly, you can even think about the communications. You might no longer really need to go there to talk to them. You might eventually become a presenter. So the presenter will actually help you to just present for you. It's like a holo presentation as well. I think these are different type of technologies nowadays is very available. I think a few things we are observing for our user is they are growing some capabilities. Some of them they actually are able to do their own setup, home setup, using a green screen to convert their office into a telecommunication studios, for which all this content can be immediately used in the mixed reality domain. There are always users who also using their mobile phone to do the 3D scanning. They can capture the design works, capture the environment, so they can use those kind of captured objects to actually also create sharp experiences online. And I think for us, what we have been seeing is from the design, the 2D design, the 3D design, to actually the hologram productions, all these kinds of materials is getting a lot more accessible for today's user to use it for the near future. I think for us, we believe that this possibility of having mixed reality in your working environment to be used in communications, to be used in the like business presentations, is getting a lot more accessible. It will definitely speed up the way how people make decisions. So this is what we have been driving. I think using one of the simple software can do this. I believe there's a lot more software so you can install the market to have to create a similar experiences to achieve your agenda. Yeah, so that's pretty much covers what I'm gonna share in AR. Yeah, so maybe now I just go back to the table. Yeah, so to continue the session. Okay. Okay, I think that's pretty much wrap up the content. Yeah, guys.
Right. Thanks, Andrew. That's fantastic. Like it's really great to see that everything's all in virtual and is workable as as of today, and it's available for us to actually to just jump in and move into this kind of a virtual environment and work without relying more on a lot of this physical presence of equipment, or perhaps those physical tools, right? I mean, now we're moving into this new environment with less tables. I guess everything is more kind of I guess in ONG&ONG context, we also adopting like a hot desking kind of environment where people just can dock it in there with their laptops and all these things and then start working. I mean, pretty much anywhere in the office. Yeah. I think the use of utilizations of AR as you show it to us just now is for communications and for visualization. Together with the collaboration tools as well. With the cloud base. I mean, we are in a cloud. We've been using cloud for the past 3 years here in our office. Like we connect all the all our offices in Malaysia, for example. I mean, Suherman, you've been using this thing too, right, in your office, along with the other offices in our office in Thailand, Indonesia, and all that. I mean, this current pandemic is a great example, right? I mean, we can work from home even right now, without relying on those on-prem servers, connect to VPN and all this. We forget about those things. We just need to log in and in the cloud, and everything's well and good. I mean, that's great. I mean, I guess that's creating a new kind of a way of working, new kind of ways of collaboration. Yeah, perhaps that's something that I can say for now. Maybe let's jump into Suherman. Do you have anything to add on?
Yes, I do. Thanks, Daniels. Ender, I like very much. And I think, and I'm hoping that the audience that's just seen what you've presented feel the same as well. Now, here's the fundamental mindset, I think. Traditionally, the AEC industry, before it was called the AEC industry, was a pen and paper, mouse and keyboard content creation process. And that process is very precious to a lot of practitioners, young and old. And with the new younger generation coming in and the adoption of cloud computing and moving everything onto the cloud, where you are less hardware dependent on site, plus with the acceleration of work from home methodologies and adapting to the COVID pandemic, I think possibly the adoption of new technologies and new ways of communicating needs to be looked into. I mean, fundamentally, what I'd like to think that what Ender has just shown us is the interface, because in our general process, we have the tools that we use to create our content with. The interface in order to manipulate and to present the content. And then ultimately, you have the audience, our clients, our co-consultants, the general public, to appraise the content. Now, my line of questioning from this point for our panel discussion really has to do with the future of our current workspace. At ONG&ONG, especially at the Singaporean HQ, predominant hot desking is being pushed to the fore to encourage different methods of working without loss. In fact, with an expected improvement in productivity. You're no longer bound between your four corners of your desk with your workstation underneath your desk. You can move around. Wi-Fi connection and 360 file storage means that you're not physically tied back. No more ball and chain scenario. Endo, my first question to you is, how can MR or AR or VR for that matter help accelerate this change of work processes? I think a paradigm shift has to take place from us moving to your confined desks to hot desking, maybe to work from home. Maybe presentations in the future will just be completely in a virtual environment. What's your take, Ender?
Yes, for the question, I think I probably can elaborate this change from two perspectives. One is the condition that you won't be on site. Another condition is you will be on site. So especially I think the industry that will be in contact with a lot of physical facilities, then both scenario has a value. So if you look at using technology like AR in the offsite experiences, you can easily imagine that you are also using this technology to do like a virtual presentations or virtual collaborations. For example, from the design perspective, you actually should want to do a design using like AutoCAD or SketchUp. Then you are actually able to export the 3D experiences into AR experiences. Then you can bring the audience from a different office to observe the 3D object together. So you can use it for even presentation to bring your clients on site to observe. Offsite in the online experiences. So you can see everyone have their avatar. They can actually talk to each other. They are able to point out different annotations on the design works. I think Microsoft also have their product called Mesh, which is also pushing the movement of allowing multi-user to connect. So this is more like a offline. Then if you look at on-site experiences, then people are also getting very used to use augmented technologies. So I can take one example. Maybe let me share this example that from our screen. So just a second. Can you see the screen now? Showing.
Yes.
Okay. There are two videos I'm showing. Can you see this video is called DB Shankar?
Yes.
Okay. So what they do is actually DB Shankar have their own warehouse. They actually want to do a whole warehouse planning. And instead of planning everything just from the CAD, what they do is they're actually using AR technologies developed by us to allow them to visualize how the whole warehouse being developed in the near future. So you can look at how it works. It's basically a holding iPad, walking around. Then you actually can see through the iPad to see the whole complete warehouse. So overlaying the physical structures. I think this is what they do from the planning design perspective. I think the good advantage is the whole simulation is responsive, which means when we are doing some planning, when we are changing the layout, you actually can see the change in AR. It's almost like real-time responsively. So because when you actually get your engineers on site to check the conditions, look at the qualifying process, so they might give you questions about workflows or like safety concerns. All these things you're able to do adjustment. I think this will basically save a lot of time from doing the paperwork and going to the AutoCAD the design works, and eventually going to testing and building. And so these are actually the definite advantage that can help you to enhance the immediate decision making for on-site experiences. So these are the two parts of experiences that we'd like to share.
Okay, thanks for that share, Ender. I've got a two-part question or point of view. The first one was that the video that you just showed us, right, help visualize how the factory space can be laid out and can be used or fitted out on behalf of the client. And the AR tool or the mixed reality tool that you showed us earlier was very much presentationally geared, and you as the presenter was able to manipulate the projected content. Now, if I was the client, if I was the audience, right, can I participate in that, or am I just a passive audience member?
Okay, I think for us, when we look at the scenario of your conversation, right? So we understand that there will always be different agenda. For example, today when I'm doing the sharing session, I definitely need to prepare as a presenter. So I need to make sure that I have control of the flow. So that's now when I was doing the presentations, I actually have a flow in my my phone, so I actually can switch the flow. It's just like general presentations over PowerPoint. I think when you're doing the PowerPoint presentations, it's unlikely you want the audience to jump in and present with you, right? So do you actually basically want to lead the conversation? Do you actually want to build influence? After that, you can bring them into another type of session which have a lot more interaction, which I think that's what I think about using AR to get audience in to provide some input. I think that these two kind of conversations have a very different agenda. At the first type, you want to still make it a little bit linear because you want to actually build the logic, build their influence, actually communicate for convincing, to influencing purpose. The second part is more like you want to open the opportunities for them to give you more feedbacks, opinions. So you want to capture the opinion as specific as possible. So you don't want them to just give you a work document. You want them to actually point at exactly design work you have, then they show you something that's very tangible. Yeah, so sometimes if they actually try to describe to you over a phone, it's unlikely you can capture in today's design industry. So they might need to always use the tools that can put you guys on the same page. I think the technology of mixed reality is put everyone exactly not the same page, it's exactly the same environment, the same space, in the same volumetric information. So people actually absorbing spatial information by having steering eyes, basically two eyes capture the size of volumetric information. Naturally, this is part of life. So if they can provide the same information the same way, give you the same format, for you it's more like that you are easily register the input, you are easily make the adjustment, and they can easily see the change of the adjustment, and then they can make these immediate decisions. So you maybe the past decision that make for over weeks can probably make even within an hour. I think that's the second part of the value that we should offer.
I think that's quite interesting. So essentially what you just mentioned is that initially as a linear presentation, the exercise is quite a passive one, but immediately the audience can be reactive. So ultimately, when you take that process into the next step, it could be interactive between content creator and audience.
Yes, that's definitely possible because basically, if you look at the nature of augmented reality, it's all built based on the kind of proxy of 3D content. So the content can be used from a presentation in the linear video format, can be used in the maybe augmented interactive sessions by having people to join to actually view together. So it really depends on how do you eventually deploy the content to the end user.
Cool. Okay, now I'm gonna the second part of my question, and this one is more for the designers and the architects and the engineers, the professionals in the AEC industry, right? As we've mentioned and touched on earlier, we're slowly moving into a more flexible working paradigm. Hot desking is one. If you think about WeWork and co-working spaces where you don't have to be in one physical location for the whole day, you come in 2-3 hours and then continue the rest elsewhere. I would like to think that with something like the pandemic, it's accelerating that move, yet that move into a newer work process. But we don't want to lose the connectivity, the ability to communicate, to co-relate and interact with our colleagues, because when you do screen to screen, you lose the smaller you lose the small telltale signs. It can be very cold, but at the same time it can be very warm. For the content creators, right, let's say you're in the office right now and I'm at home and we're collaborating on a current design project. The fundamental line of thought that I have here is a two-parter: the way we work and the space that we work in. I think with the technology that you've presented to us, it's very exciting, especially to the future generations of the AEC industry professionals, because we've moved from everything that's physical and we're possibly moving into everything that's just interactive based, where you don't have to depend on contacting, let's say, a pen to tablet to get a result. It's just all motion tracking and things like that. But when we look at the space that we work in, our current physically predominant scenario, what do we need to do to be ready for MR or VR and AR to move ahead into a new way of working?
Okay, I think for now, what we would like to always share is the technology movement is not only driven by a startup company's product, definitely not. It's driven by the movement, the whole ecosystem. So they actually already existing like plugins or softwares being launched actually for AEC industries. If you look at the software people are using like Revit, so this is the design software. People actually use this for do like structure designs, which they can already import and export to the software that can be used immediately for AR and VR, like Unity. Unity is the engine that is mainly built for AR, the different kind of immersive tech creation. I think there's already existing like a channel that you're able to port over all your design into another software. Unity has this software called Unity Reflect, which is used for visualizing the BIM design files, which they can take in the dynamic change of the BIM file into visualizing that in Unity. I think these are the major ecosystem movers. Of course, when they actually making these options, they are trying to make a very universal software. So you might end up having a very little option in customizing the design, but it's actually have to be done by the design software. But we see the different trends. I think for us, what we are actually really providing is it's more like a easy to use low coding software for people to create something by themselves. For example, as I'm sharing, this is something that we usually do. Like this is just now the RealityCast. It's the software that I use to present our overall presentation. So in this software, you're able to create the whole experiences just by putting different 3D softwares, 3D elements that you did, and then you can easily allow them to manipulate by themselves. So as you can see, everything is a low coding. There's nothing you need to really write. It's basically just see it, do an adjustment. Eventually, you can launch it. So that's one of the technology. I think for us, we believe that there's a different movement. The big players, they're putting a lot more effort in making technology, backend structures, frameworks very seamless. And then for us, it's like a startup company. We are building tools. The tools will allow users to easily build their front-end experiences. Like, for example, this is another product we actually are using, mainly helping people to create their own 360 interactive experiences. Yeah, so each of them they have their own overall experiences. So for the user, I think the adoption, the learning curve shouldn't be an issue, given that today all these technologies are becoming so user friendly. Yeah, so as you can see just now was presenting Fengbu basically because everything has been planned in this editor. You can just immediately do adjustment. You can immediately launch it, and also like those virtual 360 experiences, all these experiences you can easily modify, can easily change. Yeah, so this I think to me it's more like accessible as long as you know the way how to make all these traditional programming experiences to be a very user-friendly, low coding farm experiences, then you definitely can drive user adoption on this.
And one more question before we move into the audience Q&A. Traditionally, we work in a chair, on a table, mouse, keyboard. What you've just shown us moves you away from such seated environments. You're actually moving around, you're standing, the camera is tracking you. There is a much greater sense of spatial awareness as well as volume of space, so to allow for your assets to be presented volumetrically, almost in real time, and almost as though it is what it is, or what you see is what you get. Now, if we move on, once we move on into that kind of presentation manner, right? Would you agree, or what is your opinion? Is it a more comfortable, enjoyable work process? Do you think it will make our work processes, our workplace more healthier?
Okay, I think at least for me, since I've been doing this point presentation a few times, I feel a lot more like comfortable and flexible, especially although that this whole thing that you still need to allow you to be familiar with the software, but honestly speaking, it only took me about 2 to 3 hours to prepare this presentation, because I can easily bring everything in. There's a lot of materials and library content. We can easily use it to actually support the opinions. I think for whoever they want to look at this journey, to me, I want to give a guarantee that the materials, the content, available content that you can use for your presentation today is as rich as the photo galleries and the video galleries, the libraries online. There's a lot of the channels you can use it to create this content. You don't really have to learn everything from scratch. You don't really have to really learn the Autodesk 3D Max to actually build all this model by yourself. They also, especially for the movement of the whole scanning softwares like iPhone, their LiDAR scanning software allow you to do a native mobile phone-based 3D scanning. So one of the model actually was done by 3D scanning. Just use iPhone. I just use it to import it. You can immediately get it. I think for us, is we feel that the content creation process it's getting a lot more accessible. That's why to me, I feel as long as you are comfortable in creating content, you should feel a lot more empowered to actually imagine this should be the one of the future alternative for you to present. I think bring your presentation, bring your communication into a totally different level. A few of clients that are using this software, they do feel that they have this advantage compared with whoever are using a traditional presentation tools, because they do feel that they are a lot more comfortable and influential during the presentation. I think this is a like small benefit for the user, but eventually what we want to push is actually we want to make sure people are aware that this technology is just right there. It's just right there for you to pick up. It's always ready.
Cool. I mean,
okay, so let's move to the Q&A questions, if that's all right, Sermon.
No worries. Yes, go ahead, Daniel.
Okay, so we have two audience here asking questions. Okay, so first one first. Okay, so how can educators use this technology, which is AR or VR, in teaching? For example, for I think teaching for architectures, I believe, right? So does the emerging teaching and learning approaches involve more programming or coding algorithm rather than designing or making space per se?
Okay, thanks for Ashur's question. I think for us, what we realized is, because we do work with architect design firms, and we realized that they use a few softwares. In general speaking, AutoCAD and also the Sketchfab is the common software they've been using. I think when I'm observing the way how they use it, yeah, in the beginning we are talking to them and say, oh, okay, maybe we look at the format can be used to transfer to an AR VR format. Then after they figure out that process, then there's no longer like a learning curve at all, because all the other process has been pretty much taken care of by SaaS kind of softwares and the simple like for UI-based softwares. So there's very, very little coding you need to do, basically. I think the only thing probably depends on whether you need to create a whole interactive curriculum by yourself. And honestly speaking, if you look at that direction, which means you'll be a product action. And product action in immersive technology, it is definitely a lot more tougher, because product action means you actually need to gather sufficient adopters to use the product, which is a bit early. It's definitely not really as popular as just a general SaaS platform. If you look at the co-working softwares like Slack, of course, your target audience already a billions of audience. But if you look at the immersive technologies, architecture designs, collaborating interactive curriculum program, you might only be able to gather a user in the geography base, and in the specific industry base, you might eventually end up by 1,000, 2,000 users globally. So that might not be motivating enough for you to think about having a proprietary software. But look out to those available softwares which are cloud-based. You can probably simply search maybe Beam to AR, Beam to VR, or like a SketchUp to AR. So there are already a few softwares. They allow you to do that by yourself. I think you can just piece up things together. Like nowadays, when I look at the schools, I recently our software has been used by some MOE school as well. I noticed that the school actually use different softwares for different purposes. They actually will have one software specifically for audio recording. Then I was asking the teacher, why it has an audio recording software? Why you just put in some other existing learning management system? They say, oh, because the system only do one thing. They only do like a quiz. Then this software only do one thing. They only do audio recording. Then I asked them, how do you gather all this information to check, because you have managed 160 students in one grade. So they say, oh, we don't do that. We basically ask every student to just send me the email. So we record their email, we record their audio, then another platform record their quiz. I think this is actually exactly what is happening. Decentralized, kind of fragmented kind of softwares everywhere, but they are always doers. They want to take initiative to piece things together because they can fulfill their own agenda. So I think this scenario still take a while. It won't be, I think you expect Adobe in immersive technology as a full-fledged software might still be a bit early, but no, I believe that there are already a few components you can use to actually piece up based on your agenda.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think the challenge for us, in particular in our firm, ONG&ONG, regionally and also in Singapore, because for Singapore, for example, we government is actually mandating us to use BIM software to deliver the project, right? So the challenge for us. I mean, over the past few years, I guess, is how to convert this complex business model, which is file size is normally in hundreds of megabytes and gigabytes kind of a data, into some more simplified kind of a model geometry into the like AR OBG, for example, right? So that's something that is I think right now perhaps is how to simplify these things become a challenge. So yeah, perhaps with, I don't know if your solutions perhaps can overcome that kind of a challenge as well for the BIM, because I think most of us actually now kind of being, have to deliver the project in the BIM way.
Yes, I think that even for BIM, they are already a software that we are using for BIM conversion. BIM conversion to usually they convert to FBX file. It's a very common format. Sadly speaking, we have yet to see a real time, always live version of BIM conversion. Because live version means you take whatever dynamic change in the BIM, immediately transfer that into a virtual environment. We have yet to see those software, but they are always a software. They take alternative process. For example, whenever you edit, you might just push the edit, then you actually update the 3D model. So that's something we are seeing. It is happening.
Okay. All right. Right. So moving on into the second question here from the audience. Okay. So I guess we all believe this will be the future of the world. Okay. I want to ask, is there any reason or possible limitation or issue that needs to be think of in MR applications? For example, can it involve touch sensors for us to have a full experience of MR? So I think he's asking about this touching kind of experience, I guess. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for Krishna. Yeah. So thanks for the question from Krishna. I think if you look at full experiences, we actually been thinking about what does full experience really means. Because when in the beginning there are VR experiences coming to the market, so people feel that, oh, I actually have a Google Cardboard. To them, they feel, oh, this is such a amazing wow experiences, and they always thought that's a full experiences. Then after a while, when people try it, they say, oh, it's dizzy. They see the very like a headaches. Then they feel realize they want more. But I think at that moment I was thinking, does it mean that more is better? Because you have a one crappy experiences. Can you use other few crappy experiences to save it? Probably cannot. So you might only end up by managing the expectation. Yeah. So I think the industry has been moving to not really trying to give you a whole flash of smell and audio, touching experiences to those devices like Oculus Quest. Right? Oculus Quest is the most successful device nowadays. They sold like almost 1 million in the past quarters, but they don't really try to do that. What they do is they try to at least do one thing good, then they try to do something like a good on audio. But I think the full experience, including your sense touching, even tasting as well, the synth as well, right? So I think there are technologies already there. Like there's a company in Japan. They actually have this iPhone plug-in, which is a hardware plug-in, like a hardware plug-in, which you can generate 32 synth using a computer, based generated computer materials. Then for the touching, there is a device, haptic gloves device, which they already capture the joint movement. They convert that into a virtual hand. They can use to touch. Then they will use the electronic to give you a feedback. So basically, you can feel the hardness of the object. If it's soft, you can also feel it. I think this kind of experiment has been applied, but those experiences are still very tedious. Like the glove itself, for now, is still not fully wireless. You need to still have a cable connecting to a device. It's unlikely you can use a mobile-based computing platform to process all this data to actually properly feedback to the audience. I think one of the movement is the computing power is moving to the edge. I think as when we look at some edge computing based on the 5G network, you can imagine that those low interval, high frequency kind of computing can just be managed by the edge server. Then we'll provide you the feedback immediately to the device. So this could be one of the transformations. I think it's definitely possible. I think for us, we see some experimental projects, experimental prototypes, but I don't think that's well adopted. Because one of the challenges we also have we have a motion capture suit. The whole capture suit has been used in the X-Men by Hollywood movies. So actually, we have the whole suit. We are the only two companies in Singapore have this suit. Then after we try a few times, we realize maintenance is very tough. and also the setup time usually take us 1 full hour to do that. So I think for us, we might want to suggest whoever want to invest on these technologies to actually respect these technologies in the early stage. It's not really in the massive production stage. So if it's not in massive production, which means you don't really have a guarantee of QC. If you look at the whole product has been only shipping by maybe 1,000 units, then you are very hard to actually get any warranty. Even for Oculus Quest, there's no warranty in Singapore. There's a warranty still covered by US. And if I say like for device HoloLens, they're starting to have a warranty in different countries. I think, but it is still in the relatively early stage. Yeah, so do consider carefully whenever you want to use this experimental technology. Yeah.
Yeah, speaking of the hardware just now, I mean, continuing to that conversation, right? I mean, the pool questions that we asked earlier. Okay, let's see what's the audience. How do I share this? So I end the pooling. Okay, so share result. Okay, right. So yes, I mean, speaking of the hardware, say the question number 2 first. So let's jump into that. Right. I mean, the majority still like a smaller device, I guess, right now, as opposed to wearable devices like head-mounted display, for example. As you can see, I mean, as you mentioned, like, oh, it's not comfortable, all these things, like, and I guess we are kind of perhaps moving away from this physical setup, like, display monitors, or perhaps last time we have this kind of a VR cave, right? I mean, that's something that is more kind of I guess traditional in a way of the in the world of this immersive kind of experience. I don't know. Yeah, what do you think, Ender, on this, based on this response?
Okay, I think yeah, I think this group of audience are very definitely a lot more futuristic than the other group I was involved in. Yeah, so I think to me it's a very encouraging, because sometimes we do have a lot more passive feedback in other type of conversation. But this conversation is good because I think the software like Epic and Unity, they definitely put in quite a lot of effort in driving the adoption from easy industries, which is definitely a good sign. And even in Singapore, the government like BC, they're also driving a lot of immersive applications to look at the design. I think I believe that it definitely aligns. I think it shows that that the work has been well done, has been well received in this industry, which I feel is very encouraging. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, most of them are still like to use the handphone. I mean, the smartphone as a media or as a hardware right now to communicate and to kind of, I guess,
Okay.
engage this kind of AR/MR, right? I mean, that's
Yes.
kind of the most. I mean, I guess. I mean, I'm not too sure. I mean, like wearable devices like smartwatches, for example. I mean, we've seen movies like the watches actually can display or project some sort of like a hologram. I mean, I don't know what I mean. That's something that perhaps is.
I think yes. I think yes. Also about the second two questions, I think I realized there are actually 10 words about the cave. I think that's already definitely much larger than what I can even imagine. Usually we call the cave projections. It was only happening in those museums or like theaters, because those are the kind of setup that people want to feel the experiences as the main takeaway. I think for these industries, I believe that using cave allow people to walk in the space. They want to actually have a sense of size, which is very important. Because I think in some industries like product design industries, you might not really need to have a cave, because you don't really have to feel the size of the environment. You just have to feel the size of the objects. But if you look at the environment design, having cave set up is definitely very rational. I think this is very unique to maybe AUC industry, because they're industry like gaming, they're industry of like logistics, planning, product designs, all these immersive technology like automobile designs. I don't think they really need a cave, because to them the environment will not prioritize things to look into. But this is very special for ADC. And also, of course, smart handheld devices is always popular. If you definitely stay there for at least 2-3 years, because if you look at the shipping unit, right? So like immersive tech device, they might ship about maybe 4-5 million per year as a best record, maybe this year. But I think smartphone, they probably ship 4-5 million per week globally. So I think there's a significant change of quantities. Look at the quantity, you look at the adopters, definitely you get the most votings from the whoever has the accessible device.
Yeah.
I think, gentlemen, if I can add something, right? When you look at the results of the poll, frankly speaking, they're not surprising. They're excited about it, and they want to be mobile. So immediately that tells me they want to have the choice to be able to engage whenever, wherever they want to. And I think that's going to drive the adoption for such new technology that will then inform how your new processes emerge from the outcome of adopting the tech.
Yes, I think basically people always would like to have accessible technology. As in the early stage, people look at the immersive technology, they want to have something they always call fancy. They want to kind of immersive. They want to use those kind of words. But eventually, we have to consider how do you deploy, how do you land it. I think in the early stage, in the first 2-3 years, we actually have been facing the trouble having very low adoptions because whenever we present the technologies, they always realize that you need to have a heavy setup. But nowadays, I see the trend is firstly, we are moving to mobile. That's why just now when I present, we just use a mobile phone. We don't use anything else. And another trend is not only mobile, you actually have to consider another trend within the mobile. It's basically the application is going to be a web apps in the near future. So which means whatever you process from the app store, you might be able to process the same quality of experiences from a browser in the mobile. So that we should give you the ultimate flexibility because you have even avoid having to install anything. I think nowadays the user have a little bit concern. When you look at the industry level of software tools, they still have to install the whole applications. The applications have to own an enclosed ecosystem to capture all the data and information to actually get access permission from the mobile phone. So people are starting to feel a little bit uncomfortable by giving the application so much permission. But if you look at the alternative ways, if we are driving some movement to allow everything happens on browsers, then the browser will allow you to take over all this level of security because it's always paired with your own browser ultimate security permission setup. Then the audience will feel much lighter. So lighter experiences will make them feel a lot more comfortable. For example, one of our products is fully browser-based. You can achieve a browser-based AI experiences. Just imagine whatever we are showing that you can use browser to achieve the same thing in a very soon time. Then the audience will feel there's probably no harm, no boundary, or like no hesitation to try it out because there's no risk at all. I think this is definitely another movement that we need to push together.
Right. So Daniels, I think we can, that's all the time we have left. Let's wrap up. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, the future is now. Those that grew up on Minority Report and Iron Man's heads-up display, it is coming to you, and it sounds like it's looking to be a very exciting technology. We hope you've been able to take something away from this for your own thoughts. Unfortunately, while we wrap up right now, I do wish we had more time to discuss this further, but it is what it is. Thank you, Ender, for joining us and agreeing to speak with regards to mixed reality and how it can be applied into the future work processes. To the rest of the audience, thank you for participating. Thank you for joining and listening to us ramble on. Please check the event schedule for other interesting and informative BeyondX sessions. I assure you the upcoming 2 for the rest of the day will be correlated to what Ender's just presented to us and will be quite exciting. Now, on behalf of Daniels and the team behind BeyondX, thank you very much. See you in the next cycle next year.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ender. Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Yep.